Well, here we go, everybody. It's Friday, and I couldn't be happier. I mean, we got my old buddy and my old partner in crime, the one, the only, Cris King. Cris, welcome. And as we get ready for the NFL playoffs, I can't think of anybody I'd rather have here.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend. I mean, we saw a lot of exciting games last weekend. I mean, it kind of fizzled out once you got to Sunday night and then Monday night. Monday night's game was a dud completely, but uh, I think we're going to see some good action this weekend. We'll see who moves on to the title games next weekend.
Absolutely. Let's start with someone you know, the Buffalo Bills at the Denver Broncos. That's a 4:30 game on CBS. Nantz and Romo on the call. Is this Josh Allen's last shot, or what do we think on this?
I don't think you
You're
can ever.
familiar with Buffalo, so you tell me.
I don't think you could ever call it a last shot
Mhm.
with when you've got Josh Allen under center. I mean,
Right.
look at the fact that he carried this team. When you look at their receivers, and now they're down to Brandon Cooks, who they got off waivers during the season, Keon Coleman, who was benched a whole bunch of times. Curtis Samuel's supposed to come back potentially off injured reserve this week. And then you've got Khalil Shakir, who caught everything they threw at him last week against Jacksonville. I think the big thing in this game is going to be, can Denver stop the run? Because we watched these teams play last year in the wild card round,
Right.
and they could not. And you look at this defensive line, yeah, Denver, they get after the quarterback. That's all well and good. But Buffalo has a massive size advantage. I think it's 230 pounds or something like that across the front, where they have a weight advantage, especially when you got Deion Dawkins and against Nick Bonito and things like that. If Buffalo goes 6 offensive linemen, or they run the 3 tight end set that they've run a lot this season with Hawes and Kincaid and Knox, it's going to force Denver to adjust. And Buffalo ran for over 200 yards against them last season. This defense isn't that much different. I mean, sure, you've got Trey Greenlaw now, and you've got Hufanga. I'm not convinced that Denver's defense can slow the run like Jacksonville did.
Let me ask you this with regard to that. Love Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix, when even back when we were talking in the colleges, we thought he was a plug and play quarterback, and he's proved it. That perhaps one or two things we got right. That would be one of them. Anyway, I'm sure that Bo has stepped up, no question. But this is the playoffs. It's a tough situation. He's playing at home, which is a good thing for him. But everything is different in the playoffs, and I'm curious to see if Bo can step up and run Sean Payton's offense against a Buffalo team that is incredibly balanced and certainly has a great deal of playoff experience.
And that's the big thing, right? It comes down to experience this time of year. We saw it last week
Mm-hmm.
with Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, when the game was on the line, made a mistake. Well, he made multiple mistakes in the game, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Allen didn't. Now, Knicks, sure, they got the bye. I give them all the credit in the world for that. You beat the teams that were in front of you on the schedule. You've won 14 games in the regular season. What can you do in the postseason? Because right now, Bo Nix's record is 0-1. And, the big weakness in Buffalo's defense is, can you run the ball? And we've seen with Denver, since J.K. Dobbins got hurt, they don't.
They can't. Yeah. It is a problem. There's no question about that. But, all right, for me, the key for Denver winning is, like you said, a running game, number one. And Bo Nix can't turn the ball over.
True. And that's going to be the big thing. We saw how Bobby Babbitt and Sean McDermott mixed up coverages. They mixed up looks. They flummoxed Lawrence at times, where if he couldn't find Parker Washington, who had a great game, he kind of struggled. He threw the touchdown to Etienne, where Etienne broke a bunch of tackles on a screen pass, and he threw a 3-yard touchdown to Brian Thomas.
Right.
And I'm not going to take anything away from Cortland Sutton. I'm not going to take anything away from Pat Bryant or anybody else in Denver's receiving corps. But can they get open, and can that offensive line hold up long enough to give Nix time to throw? And can he diagnose the coverages?
I
Because if
think
there's
that's
somebody,
probably I'm sorry. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, if there's somebody that'll mix it up, it's McDermott. You think it's a cover two, and then all of a sudden they're running something else, and it's just going to make things difficult.
They slide the cover two into press man faster than anybody I've seen.
And they'll rotate. They'll make it look like one coverage here, and then as soon as you
Mm-hmm.
snap the ball, it's something completely different. And that's tough for a young quarterback. Even
Mm-hmm.
though we say Nix is young, but he seemed like he was in college for 35 years.
Yeah,
So
he's actually due for retirement, I think, in a couple of years. But no, seriously, I think I will say that I've been impressed with the way Bo has been able to adjust to coverages. That being said, um, this is a whole different situation. You only have to screw it up once or twice, and in a game like this, and give Josh Allen extra time, and this likely will be the last game um, for a number of Buffalo players because you're going to have to restructure contracts and such.
that's
So,
that's true.
so I think you know, despite it's being played in Denver, I think all arrows are pointing to Buffalo taking this game.
I think it's going to be a tight game, and like you said, it's going to come down to turnovers. It's going to come down to can Denver run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville ran the ball, and then all of a sudden they decided, well, we don't need to run the ball anymore, and that's what I think unraveled things for them. If you're running the ball with success, why go away from it? And
I don't know. Liam Cohen last week. I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago, I think was it the Chargers that played them in Jacksonville?
Yeah,
and they blew that lead. I mean,
yep.
They blew a hell of a lead.
Yeah, it was 27-0.
Yeah. So, if it happened for them two times, the last two times they've been in the playoffs, they've blown leads. Now, in Denver and Buffalo's case, I use that to get to this, and that's Bo. Bo making a mistake, or Bo misreading a defense, and his receivers make mistakes. So it leads to me to believe, as I said, if he can play error-free football and Denver can run, then it'll be a close game. If they can't do that, if they turn the ball over, Buffalo will make you pay.
Right, and I think injuries are going to be a concern too. I mean, we've seen Jordan Poyer's not going to play for Buffalo. Maxwell Hairston's not going to play. You got some guys that are questionable. I'll be interested. Ed Oliver tore his bicep in Week 8 against Carolina. He's back practicing now. He's listed as questionable. We'll have to see if Buffalo activates him from IR. If they do, even if he's on a snap count, that's going to be a big boost to that defensive line. Yeah. Because Oliver, obviously a space eater who can disrupt things from the defensive tackle position.
Well, let's move on to the second game, which is in prime time, as well it should be. The 49ers and Seattle. They're playing in Seattle where it is loud and it's going to be crazy. This is a rematch of a game a couple of weeks ago. And, the one thing that I'm impressed with, as always, with San Francisco is Kyle Shanahan's ability to figure out what he did wrong the first time and fix it. That being said, San Francisco's banged up a bit. Seattle is playing hellacious defense. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game either.
No, you look at the two games in the regular season, San Francisco won 17-13. And in the other game, it was Seattle winning 13-3. So if you're looking for points, this isn't the game you want to tune into. If you want to see people
over, yeah,
right. If you want to see people get smacked around, then you're in the right spot.
This is a rock fight.
Yeah, definitely. And you're looking at it, and the big question that I have is, can you trust Sam Darnold in the playoffs? And we watched him last year. He had that big year with the Vikings, and then he came out in the postseason and he was absolutely horrible. Now he's banged up too. He's got deal with an oblique injury.
Right.
We know San Francisco won't have Fred Warner. He's on the way back, but he's not going to be back this week. They still don't have Nick Bosa, like you said. They're dealing with injuries on both sides of the ball. But one thing that we've seen from Brock Purdy is, he can run Shanahan's offense.
Right.
And he's won in the postseason. And that's a big thing that you have to take into consideration. We talked about Darnold a minute ago. Last year he was 25 of 40 for 245 yards, a touchdown and interception. He also got sacked 9 times in that playoff game last season. And, if you're going to take that kind of beating, and we've talked about Darnold, even a few years ago.
Yeah.
Remember the Monday night game against New England where he was seeing ghosts.
Yeah. Oops.
Will that come back to haunt him here? You got smacked around by the Rams last year. San Francisco's got an aggressive defense, like you said. I'm not sold on Sam Darnold avoiding mistakes. He threw 14 interceptions during the course of the year. And you have to be concerned, can he avoid turning the ball over?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what you think about Seattle's chances here, other than the fact that they're at home.
Yeah, but I think from Seattle's standpoint, right, it's they have been able to win games despite some mess ups by Sam Darnold. Okay, the guy who I find fascinating in this game, the X factor, is Kyle Juszczyk. The way that Shanahan has played Juszczyk in an H-back position, in kind of like a pseudo tight end position, a running back position, he's been like the Swiss Army knife. And you've got Christian McCaffrey there. I don't think anybody throws more to the backs and the tight ends than the 49ers. They're very comfortable, dinking and dunking their way down the field.
Yeah, and you look at Juszczyk had 4 catches, for 49 yards last week against Philadelphia.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of been, he does do a good job. I don't know if Kittle's going to be able to play.
No, Kittle tore his Achilles.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so I think Juszczyk becomes really somebody here who, certainly if I know about it, Seattle's got him, but can you cover all those people once? And the other thing that's interesting to me is neither of these quarterbacks are particularly mobile. I mean, they can get out of trouble and extend plays, but you're not going to see Brock Purdy, run 60 yards, like a Lamar Jackson might, or someone like that, or Josh Allen for that matter. So this is an old school. I think this is going to be an old school kind of football game, like an old Packers and Bears game, where you basically, they could put leather helmets on and play this game. I just don't think either. I don't think Seattle trusts the passing of Darnold, and I don't think that San Francisco wants to do a lot of passing. They want to milk the clock and make this game as short as possible.
Right, and that's the bad thing for Seattle is you're not confident in Darnold, but you've got Smith and Jigba, who led the league in receiving yards this season, as your number 1 receiver, and you got Cooper Kupp. The bad part is, sure, you got great receivers, but you don't have a quarterback. On the other side, when we were talking about Buffalo before, you've got a great quarterback, and you don't have any receivers. So, I mean, if you put those two things together, imagine what kind of offense you'd have there.
That'd be amazing, yes.
But
Cooper Kupp is to me possibly one of the best. He finds a way to find a spot that if you need 9 yards for a first down, he'll catch it on the 10th yard.
Right.
He finds a way to just get enough. And he basically runs that route. I don't think, that type of, I guess he's running the Z. No, he wouldn't be the Z. He'd probably be the X, receiver, a possession receiver. He might be the best possession receiver, although Puka Nacua is not bad either. The Rams.
Right.
He might be the best possession receiver in the game.
Yeah, his numbers were down this year, but that's because, he was only targeted 70 times as opposed to Smith and Jigba's 163.
Right.
But the fact that you've got 2 quality receivers out there that can catch the ball and move the sticks is important, especially in this league now. See, the problem with Seattle is they don't run the ball all that well either. You look
Mhm.
at, sure, Kenneth Walker had 1,027 yards, but it seemed like they came in drips and drabs here and there. He didn't necessarily, he's not necessarily consistent. He'll break out here and periodically, and then Charbonnet is your 3 yards and a cloud of dust kind of guy because he finished with a 4 yard average, but he had only a couple games where he actually did anything of note, especially
Mhm.
the week 2 or the week 16 win against Carolina. Or week 17. Sorry, I keep forgetting now that there's 18 weeks in the season.
Yeah.
But, when he went for 110 against Carolina, then he had 74 in the win against the 49ers in the season finale. But other than that, you're looking at, he's more of a complimentary back. You look at Walker, he only had 200-yard games all season. Can Seattle move the ball enough on the ground to maybe open up some of that space in the secondary? Because Jair Brown's going to be out for San Francisco at safety. That's going to be a concern. Like we said, Warner's not playing.
Mhm.
And then offensively, can San Francisco overcome their own issues injury-wise? You
Yeah.
look last week, like you said, Kittle's out. Juwan Jennings only caught one pass last week. He completed as many passes as he caught.
Mhm.
And now can Jake Tonjes step back up? He played well at tight end earlier in the year when Kittle was injured with that hamstring issue. Can he contribute again like he was at that point?
Yeah.
That's going to be the big question.
Yep. I think that's I think gosh, this is a tough. If I had to choose, I'm going to go with San Francisco in this game.
Yeah, I'd lean towards San Francisco just because of the fact that I trust Purdy more than I trust Darnold at this point. But it could go either way. Home field has been a big factor, and like you said, especially at Lumen Field where it can be loud. Everybody remembers when Seattle won the NFC West 10, 15 years ago with an 8-9 record or 7-9 record, and then beat New Orleans in the wild card round when Marshawn Lynch had that big touchdown run in the fourth quarter. But until I see Darnold do something in a meaningful game, I got to fade him a little bit. I just don't trust a guy that has had 2 good seasons in his career.
Yeah. Basically, it's one of those situations where you say, I'll trust you when you prove it. And,
exactly.
He's not there yet. The weather for Seattle tomorrow night shouldn't be bad. It's going to be in the 40s likely. It's going to be dry, which in Seattle at this time of the year is very interesting.
Seattle at any time of the year, it's interesting.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I lived there for 3 years. As soon as I moved there, it rained 87 days in a row.
Okay, well, precipitation chance tomorrow is 1%. So there you go.
Watch by the time you get to kickoff, it'll be 98%.
Right, probably. Yeah, it'll come quickly. But my only point there is that shouldn't, the field shouldn't be an issue. The weather shouldn't be an issue. This is, we talked about a rock fight before. This is going to be just as bad of a rock fight as the one we talked about before. I don't think this is going to be we talked about being the under. This is definitely going to be the under. And I'm looking for Huchek. I really think he's going to be the X factor for San Francisco in this game.
Yeah, I think 17 points will win this game. I mean, I'm not looking for big offensive numbers.
I was going to say the first team to 21 would win, but you might be right at 17.
It could be 7-6.
It could be.
You never know.
Speaking of 7-6, let's move over to Sunday's games. And the first one up is Houston at New England. Now, going into the fourth quarter last week in this stadium that is behind us, Acrisure Park, Houston was a 7-6 leader over Pittsburgh at that point in time, back when, we're going way back to when, the team was coached by Mike Tomlin.
Right.
It's the good old days when Mike was there. And this is a Houston team that's defense. If you were not sold on that defense before, you better get sold on it now. That defense is brutal. And,
they've got a great defense. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter in the front, or the front four, make life miserable for anybody.
They may be the best 2 edge rushers in the game right now.
They're definitely the best pairing in the league for sure.
Yeah.
I watched them sack Josh Allen 8 times back in November. Drake May, everybody wants to talk about how Drake May is the presumptive MVP and he's battling with Stafford for this, and he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But you look at the way that he performed against the Chargers, and it was pedestrian. He turned the ball over multiple times. He threw one interception. He fumbled a couple times. Everybody wants to point to the fact that he threw for 268 yards, but he was sacked 5 times. He ran for 66, but 37 of those came on one carry. You look at the receivers, Stephon Diggs caught 2 passes for 16 yards. Their leading receiver was Butte, who caught 4 for 66. I'm not convinced that he's going to have time to look for a lot of these downfield throws against the Houston team that makes life miserable for opposing quarterbacks, to put it bluntly.
Right.
And they've got a good secondary with Petrie and Stingley and Kalen Bullock and everybody back there too. The big question for Houston, can their offense do anything? Nico Collins hasn't practiced. He's in the concussion protocol. If he doesn't go, then you take away your number one receiver. Trent Brown hasn't practiced the first couple of days this week, which would be a blow to the offensive line. Denico Autry hasn't practiced with a knee injury. Titus Howard's been limited. Can this defense do what they did against Pittsburgh and put points up themselves? Because they might need to, because I'm not sold on the offense. CJ Stroud looked what's a good way to put it?
Pedestrian, yes.
Pedestrian might be generous, because he turned the ball over a bunch too in that game against Pittsburgh, and that's why the game was 7-6.
He turned the ball over 3 times, and he got sacked 4 times.
And if it wasn't for Woody Marks running for 112 yards, you might be wondering, would we be seeing Pittsburgh playing at home this week, and would Tomlin still have a job?
Right. It's interesting to me because in that game against the Steelers, the Steelers defense played tremendously. The problem with they scored. Remember, they scored 3 field goals. They were inside the red zone, I think 4 times.
I believe so.
But Aaron Rodgers, he's not. He's still got the arm. He's still got the ability. The problem was for Aaron, the edge rushing was ridiculous. They couldn't protect him, and secondly, he didn't have anybody deep to throw to.
Yeah, he had a couple of throws early to Metcalf, and then Metcalf kind of fell off the face of the earth.
Well, he missed one that I think you caught. He could have caught, or I could have caught.
True.
There wasn't anybody around him. He catches that ball and he walks in. He walks into the end zone. But that's the way it goes. So Rodgers, to me, is still smart enough to figure out a way to get through this. His problem was he just didn't have the personnel to get there. He didn't throw a pass at all to any of their tight ends until the third quarter.
Yeah, Freiermuth only caught 1 pass.
Right.
Jonnu Smith caught 2 for negative 1 yard.
Right.
And that's not going to get done. But you look, Metcalf had 2 catches in the game. I think they both came on the first drive or 2.
I was going to say early.
I was just going to pull up the play-by-play there. You look at on the opening drive. Let's see. He caught a pass on the third play the second play of the game for 17 yards.
Right.
And so then he caught 1 pass over the last 59 minutes, and that's not going to get it done.
No.
And like we said, you look at Stroud. Sure, he was 21 of 32 for 250, but like you said, he threw an interception. He fumbled the ball 5 times. Somehow managed to recover 3 of them himself.
Right.
And you look at both these teams. Like you said, Houston scored 2 defensive touchdowns in the fourth quarter. New England scored 1 offensive touchdown. It came with 10 minutes to go in the game, and the Chargers looked absolutely abysmal trying to move the ball. And the question is, could this be another rock fight too? Because
so far, we've got 3 of them at this point. at this point. I just don't see Drake May doing much against that Houston defense. I don't know.
Yeah, if he was sacked 5 times by the Chargers, you have to
Uh,
wonder how are you gonna handle this Houston defense?
they may have to put the blue tent on the field for him because I'll tell you what that Houston defense just they don't stop. They're brutal. They are absolutely brutal. And you know, like it or not, defense wins. And Houston's defense against that Patriots team. I know there are a lot of fans in New England hoping for a Bills New England championship game. I don't think that's going to happen, at least from the New England side.
It's going to be tough. I mean, like you said, this is another game where both defenses are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Can Stroud avoid making mistakes and sustain drives, which we saw him struggle to do last week? And can May come up with some plays, because that's going to be the big factor? Can he avoid making a mistake against an aggressive Houston defense? Because we know what DeMeco Ryans' defense has done all year long. They've beaten teams senseless. You look at their numbers, and I wouldn't want to face them right now. I mean, they've been on a roll since starting the year. What were they, 1-4?
Yeah, they won 9 in a row.
Yeah, and you look, and they've just they managed to force a turnover every game but 2 this season. And that was a win over the Colts, and they when they lost to Tampa Bay by 1 back in week 2. But they forced 3 turnovers in the finale against Indianapolis. They forced 2 turnovers last week. They scored defensive touchdowns on both of them. They sacked Rodgers 4 times. They probably hit him about 45 times because,
right, yeah.
Let's face it, Rodgers is not the most mobile guy in the league.
Not anymore.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big concern. They'll have one thing that Anderson and Hunter are going to have to do is they're going to have to maintain the perimeter. Because they can't let May loop to the outside, because we know he has mobility, and that's going to be a big factor.
I just pulled up the weather forecast for tomorrow in the Boston area, and it's going to be rain snow mix mostly during the day. Wind's going to be between 8 to 12 miles an hour. The thing that this is going to sound nuts, but wouldn't be the first time I've been nuts, and not the first time I've been nuts with you. And that is, we've seen some bizarre kicking, right?
For sure.
Foxborough, the way the stadium is configured, it's like a bloody wind tunnel. I mean, I think, what was it, a few years ago, we saw that game where they threw like 3 or 4 passes, kept throwing, the wind kept blowing the passes back in the guy's face. Yep. So the combination of rain, snow mix, and wind, man, this thing is I think we have an opportunity here to see probably some missed field goals, maybe even another missed extra point.
Yeah, and one thing you won't see another snowplow game like you remember back
that's not going to happen
at Schaefer Stadium in 1982.
Right.
It's going to be whoever can run the ball and avoid the turnovers is going to be who comes out of this game, and that's basically what it's going to boil down to, because you look, and like you said, wind can be a factor. I don't know if you want to trust either one of these teams to try to throw the ball at all, especially with the defensive linemen that they're dealing with here.
If they're throwing it, they're throwing it to the cheerleaders, because they're not going to, just get it out of my hand before I get sacked.
Right. So I think it's gonna be interesting. I mean, the big question is, what did you say the temperature is supposed to be for Sunday?
It's going to be around the mid 30s.
I mean, we saw Houston do okay.
Icy rain,
Yeah, we saw Houston do okay in Pittsburgh. I mean, obviously, it being a warm weather team from a dome coming out playing.
It wasn't that cold though in Pittsburgh by Pittsburgh standards.
That's true. But with the icy rain, you have to wonder, is that going to make, not only field conditions treacherous, but is it going to make the ball slick? And
it will. I mean, the field's going to be slick. So
And how will Houston adjust to that?
yeah, I mean, they're going to be playing on skates um, in that situation because that
It's,
turf sucks as well. I mean,
that's true. I
that
mean,
stadium is not the best kept stadium in professional football.
uh,
But I will
but
say this: I got to give Mike Gribble high honors for, how he's coached that team because it's not. I mean, it's not the Brady type group of people, or hell, even the type of team that he played on when he played in New England.
right.
So he's gotten a lot out of this team.
But I
Now
mean, everybody.
that either says that the division he's either good or the division is kind of not up to par.
Well, Miami and the Jets aren't very good. I mean, let's be honest, and they split with
Hmm.
Buffalo. But I mean, the big thing that everybody wants to give them a lot of credit. But let's not forget that this is a team that came into the season with like $7 zillion in cap space because of the fact that they didn't have anybody to play last year,
Right.
so they could go out and get guys like Milton Williams and
Hmm.
Robert Spillane, and
True.
they could get Diggs and add some players that they wouldn't have had a year ago. And I think as much as I didn't like Jared Mayo as a head coaching selection last
Hmm.
year, you know, I think he became the fall guy for a team that was in disarray because they didn't give him any talent to work with.
Right. Kind of helps to have some players. So
That's what they tell me anyway.
I've heard rumors. Coaches coach, players play. Okay. So Houston and New England. I'm gonna go. Oh man, I don't know. I, I'm gonna go Houston. I think they'll be able to figure out how to get enough points to beat New England. Only on defense, and it reminds me of those old Ravens teams and Steelers teams that you didn't care what it could. They didn't care who was your quarterback because they were going to get you points anyway.
Right. Or the
Uh,
85 Bears even.
oh yeah, that's true. So that's going in the way back machine. Um, so yeah, I think Houston's going to be tough. Could New England win? Of course they can, but I don't know. I mean, right now I think I picked every road team in the tournament so far. But yeah, I think I don't know about you, but I think I, I like defense travels. I'm going to go with defense.
Yeah, defense does travel. The big concern is, can the defense make up for all the warts that CJ Stroud could potentially give you?
That's a good point. They did last
That's where
week.
I worry. Well, but that was, like you said, that was against a flawed Pittsburgh team that
It was.
probably shouldn't have been there.
Probably, but uh, John Harbaugh wasn't there. You know, it's funny. You figure Tomlin stepped down. John got fired, um, and so in 2 weeks' time, two coaches who got their teams to the playoffs are unemployed at this. Well, I take that back. John's signed with the Giants. We'll talk about that a little later.
But I mean,
But
but everybody in the AFC North basically fired
yeah,
their coach except for Zach Taylor.
yeah, Zach was the only
And
one.
Cincinnati fans want him fired. So
Yeah, that was kind of they're like, wait, how did he stay? So anyway, so let's move on. Now this game is going to be played at Soldier Field. It's going to be your typical January in Chicago, which is not Chamber of Commerce weather. Um, and by the way, this is a 6:30 kickoff, folks. I know some people, you know, are used to Sunday Night Football starting at 8 o'clock. It's not. It's going to start at 6:30 on NBC, and it's the Rams at the Bears. Uh, has anybody Chicago just man? They wait till the fourth quarter to win everything.
pretty much, I mean, they did twice to Green Bay in 3 weeks because
Right?
remember a couple weeks ago
Yeah,
they had they had to rally. They got an onside kick and then
21 to
scored.
6. Yeah.
Yeah, and then won in overtime. Um, the Rams. The Rams have an issue, and their issue is they play with their food too much. They should have
Hmm.
beaten the brakes off Carolina.
Right.
They should have been motivated because they had lost to Carolina in the regular
Hmm.
season. They jumped ahead 14-0.
Hmm.
Then all of a sudden they find themselves down in the fourth quarter.
Hmm.
They have to drive down the field in the last 3 minutes to win. That doesn't inspire confidence. And we talk about warm weather teams in domes traveling.
Mm.
You know, they played in Charlotte. The game time temperature was 74 degrees in Charlotte last week. It's
It's
supposed to be
not going to be that in Chicago.
it's supposed to be in the teams. I haven't looked at the
I looked right now, and they said here's the expected game time temperature is approximately 12 degrees.
Okay, so they dropped it because before they were talking yesterday, they were talking the mid-teens.
Here's the thing that is going to be a killer, and I mean, I have been to Chicago and done events in the summertime by the lake. Okay, Brady Field's not that far from the lake; you can see it from the stands. Soldier Field is on the lake. Okay, just a few blocks away. The wind is going to be 17 miles an hour coming out of the west. That 17 miles an hour in Chicago, for some reason, coming off the lake, feels like 40 miles an hour. It's going to be a real interesting situation with regard to kicking and throwing the ball. For me anyway, with the Rams in Chicago.
Yeah, and you look and we just said the Rams, you know, how's Matthew Stafford? I know he played there a bunch when he was with Detroit.
Yeah.
But the question is, how's he going to deal with it being mid-January? Can Nacua keep his footing? Can Devontae Adams be more of a contributor than he was last week?
Right.
Will the run game hold up? And for the Bears, can they avoid turnovers? Because, you know, they missed some opportunities last week. They were fortuitous, and the fact that McManus missed a couple field goals and an extra point, because had he not missed that extra point with six plus minutes to go, Green Bay could have kicked the tying field goal on that last drive instead of turning it over on downs.
I'm going to say something that may not be fair, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think Chicago's a year ahead of time. I think they're kind of like Washington was. You know, they had that, everything kind of fell in line for Washington last year, and they ended up, you know, in that big game with Philadelphia. And, you know, I just think that Chicago was good enough to get through a mediocre division. And I don't want to take anything away from them, but I just think that they're playing with house money. I don't think anybody expects them to be here.
True.
And so the pressure then slides over to Matthew Stafford and the Rams, Puka Nacua and all that. And the Rams defense is banged up all over the place. So
yeah, they just put a Kelly Witherspoon on IR this week too. That's
sure.
another
That's
shot to them.
Help. Yeah.
But
go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we were talking earlier about Drake May and the MVP. I think that given the situation in Los Angeles, that Matt Stafford's done amazing work with a little bit of nothing. He has had a very inconsistent running game. He's got two wide receivers. Not one of them is a break, a deep threat. Although Nacua can be, it's not really his style.
Right.
They play inside the numbers. They don't go down they don't throw it down the field a lot. I talked a little bit about Shanahan's little dink and dunk situation. Sean McVay's the same thing. I mean, he'll take the dink and dunk all day if that's what you're going to give him.
Yeah, and you look at last week too, and Stafford threw the ball 42 times.
Yeah,
31 of them were targeted to Nacua or Adams.
That's who else are you going to throw it to?
Well, Tyler Higbee was targeted 3 times. Parkinson was targeted 3, and then he targeted the backs twice each, and then Kanata Mumfield, everybody was looking for him. He caught a pass on his lone target, but you're right. The run game was inconsistent last week. They averaged 4 yards a carry. They ran the ball 29 times for 116 yards, but they handed it off 3 times to Nacua, which I thought was, I don't know if that's a new wrinkle for him or,
I don't like gadget plays in playoff games. They normally don't work. So, yeah, I'm not crazy about that. Nakua is not the kind of guy I want. If you're running a jet sweep, you better damn well block it, because if you don't, they're going to catch him before he gets to the line of scrimmage. I prefer, and I think if what Matt Stafford has done is he's taken. We said, what was it, 26 times they rushed last week? Is that what you said? Something
29 for 116.
Okay, 29 times, and they threw it for 41 times.
Yep.
If I recall, most of those passes of the 41 probably didn't go more than 10 yards.
No, you look, they only had 2 pass plays that went more than 20, or that covered 20 yards plus in the game. There was a 23-yarder to Adams and a 36-yarder to Higbee.
Most of what he was doing was getting them first downs.
Yep.
Because they weren't running. So, in essence, it was the old Bill Walsh long handoff. It's like, right. I'm going to throw this ball 5 yards. You're going to take it 7. One of those kind of things.
Yeah, so, and you look at the Bears side. They ran the ball 28 times, but they only got 93 yards on the ground. And Williams had to throw it 48 times. He only completed 24 of them. You're looking back at the days like we used to see in the early 80s, where guys were happy when they completed 50% of their passes. But he's going to have to be more efficient than what we saw last week. Colston Loveland caught 8 for 137 yards, but he was targeted 15 times.
I know that what Caleb Williams in that system, a lot of the times, I think there were opportunities for him to run. And I think one of the things, with Matt Campbell is that he doesn't want him to run as much as possible. He'd prefer him not do that.
You mean Ben Johnson?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're Johnson, right? Got the wrong former Lions. He's been stressing to Caleb, don't, you learn to be a pocket passer, learn to extend plays, but you don't have to run. That was Todd Monken's mantra to Lamar Jackson when they brought in Derrick Henry. We didn't bring Derrick Henry in here for you to run around.
Right.
By all means, if you see it, do it. If you don't see it, don't do it. And I think what we saw last week was Caleb was a lot of those throws that Caleb was throwing was just to get the ball out of bounds and away from, being chased down and killed. Because he was Green Bay chased him all over the field.
Well, that's the problem when you're behind by multiple scores. He can't afford to do that here, because the Rams will make this game decided really quickly if that's the case. But you look at Williams, for his issues. He had 9 pass plays that covered at least 20 yards last week. None of them were longer than 29, but if you're picking up 20 yards at a chunk, you're going to put yourself in decent field position. Yeah,
I give him a lot of credit. I mean, he's come a long way in a couple of years that he's been, with the Bears. And to the Bears' credit, they've kept him in the game, which you gotta respect. So, from that standpoint, I think they did what they could do, and they did it well. So we'll have to see. I mean, this might be a game where Chicago could steal it, because I think the Rams, they turn the ball over more than they should. You also said that they play with their food, which they did, and they continued to do.
And when you do that with Chicago, you look at all the fourth quarter comebacks Chicago had this season.
Yeah, I mean, most of their games they came back and won it.
Right, and that's going to be that's something that that gives a team confidence, especially this time of year, where just because you're down in the fourth quarter doesn't mean anything.
And I don't care who you are, right? I really don't. I mean, I've heard all this. It's a warm weather team coming to it. Well, let me just tell you something. And this, Cris, because you lived in Buffalo and you lived in areas where it's cold. It's cold for both sides. Okay,
that's true.
I don't care. I mean, it's cold for the Bears. It's cold for. I mean, hell, Caleb played his college football at USC. Believe me, it's not ever going to get the cold in Los Angeles. You're going to get in Chicago. You're not going to get that wind. He's got a bit of a home field advantage because he knows he's played there. Okay,
Right.
the Rams haven't, and you can. I'm not saying the Rams can't play in cold weather because last year, if you remember, they played in the snow. So that was. It's not that they can't play in the cold weather. It's different kind of cold weather in Chicago because it's windy cold weather and it's not, just cold. So I'm interested in seeing how that wind affects the passing game and the kicking game.
Right. And the kicking game is a big thing because we saw how the Rams had issues earlier in the year
Yeah.
with a kicker, and that's why they had to get rid of Josh Carty and brought in Harrison Mevis.
Right.
But you look at Cairo Santos, you have to give the edge to the Bears in the kicking game. He kicked a 51-yarder last week in that building.
Right. In the wind.
Right. And that's something you have to take into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Can the Rams rely on their kicker when the game's on the line? And that's a big question.
I think what we will be able to tell is once they cross the 50-yard line and they get into plus territory, if you see them on let's say the 35-yard line, something like that, maybe the 30, maybe the 40-yard line, and it's a fourth down and they're going for it, then I guarantee you they have absolutely no. They may try it once. They may say, let's give the kid a shot and see what happens. But that's your tell to me. If the teams are going for it on fourth down inside what normally would be, because we've had kickers kicking the ball damn near 60 plus yards.
Right.
But it's not going to happen in this game. You're going to kick a 35 or 40-yard field goal and you should get a medal for that. But we'll have to see how that plays out. But I do think the wind is going to be a factor, at least to some extent in the passing game, probably a larger extent in the kicking game.
Yeah, and like I said, and I know you said, it's going to be cold for both teams, but the Rams aren't necessarily used to this kind of weather.
No, you're right.
And that's going to be the big concern. What do they do when the ball, bounces off their hands and things like that? Because that ball, we talked about it before when we talked about when Buffalo played the Raiders in 1994, and it was 0.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul McGuire talked about Jeff Jager coming out to kick a field goal. He's like, it's like kicking a brick.
Paul was right. It was like kicking a brick. The other thing in the Steelers game last week, one of the picks was a ball that hit the guy right in the hands.
Right.
And it wasn't that cold in Pittsburgh by Pittsburgh standards, and they weren't able to nail it down. And I think that was a big problem last week for Pittsburgh. And you're right about the cold hands. I think if Puka Nacua comes out there wearing gloves, I think that'll give us a clue as to whether or not. I don't think people realize how hard that ball is to catch under normal circumstances, but catching that ball with cold hands, it's a cold ball. It's hard.
Right. And I think a big thing that we have to look into too here is red zone success. The Rams scored 48 touchdowns on 76 red zone drives this year.
That's pretty good.
The Bears gave up only 32 touchdowns on 57 red zone attempts defensively.
Okay.
So will the Rams be able to finish drives against this defense? Or
they end up playing 20 between the 20s, right?
Right. And conversely, can the Bears put the ball in the end zone instead of settling for 3 points? Because, you settle for 3 points enough times, you're going to get beat.
Yep. There's no question about that. I think I'll go with the Bears.
I mean, I did a write-up for this. I took the Bears with the points just because I'm not convinced that the Rams are going to put anybody, out of their misery, because they couldn't do it last week against a team that shouldn't even have been in the playoffs.
Right.
And now you got to deal with less than optimal weather conditions You've got a young team that doesn't know any better, that they're not. It's like Rocky 1,
Right.
This guy doesn't think it's a show. He thinks it's a fight.
Right.
And, let's finish the bum and let's go home. But the Rams, they don't tend to think that way.
Again, we talked a lot about Seattle being loud, and we've talked about other places. You've been to Buffalo, you know what that's like. The Bears fans are the same way as Buffalo. Okay, they come to the game early. They don't give a damn how cold it is, and they just scream incessantly for 3 hours. Win, lose, or draw, they don't care. They're there. The Bears are there to be, to be worshipped by the Chicago Bears, faithful, and they can make a lot of noise in that building. Now, is it as bad as Seattle? No. And has Matt Stafford heard, loud noises? Yeah, I don't think that's a problem. I think what's going to kill Matt is he doesn't have a running game. If he doesn't have a running game, he can't. That's going to be tough to beat Chicago.
That's true, and that's going to be a big factor. Will they be able to move the ball on the ground, and can they sustain drives and get Chicago off the field on the flip side on third down? They can't let Williams beat them by extending plays like Green Bay did last week.
And I don't know. I mean, given the injuries they have on defense, I don't know that they can do that.
It's going to be interesting. Their best bet is to, get in front early and not let Chicago back in the game like they did with Carolina last week.
Right, and they could hope for, because he does do it occasionally, and that's Caleb can turn the ball over.
That's true. He threw 2 picks last week in that game. And
Matt threw what? Matt threw 2 picks in that game. He played last week against Carolina, didn't he?
He had 1.
1? Okay.
Yeah. 24-42 for 304, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception.
1
he
pick?
He was sacked once.
Okay. I don't know why I thought he got picked twice.
I think he got picked twice in the regular season meeting.
Oh, yeah. That was a brutal game. Oh, my God. So we'll see how that plays out. It's a crazy, crazy, crazy one. We'll go there. All right. Let's you got over your shoulder there the Cubs logo.
Yep.
We're going to downshift for just a minute and talk. What about Alex Bregman going to the Cubbies?
I mean, they wanted him last year, didn't get him because he went to Boston. I think it's a good acquisition. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Matt Shaw and Nico Horner at this point, because now there's talk that there's been interest in Horner on the trade market. I don't know if they'll move him. I mean, he's such a glue guy in the middle of that line, or at the top of that lineup. But I like some of the moves. I thought they were going to get Tatsuma Amai from Japan, but he ended up going to the Astros.
Right.
So they made the deal for Edward Cabrera. Hopefully he can stay healthy. And now you're looking, but now we saw Kyle Tucker just got a truckload of money for a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
And now the Mets have apparently reached a deal with Bo Bichette, 3 years, $126 million. So makes you wonder.
3 years, $126 million for Bichette?
Yep.
And
it's another one of those Carlos Correa deals with the Twins where he has the opt-outs after seasons 1 and 2.
Well, it's because his agent is Scott Boras.
I'm surprised Boras decided to sign, such short deals, because the Tucker deal is only a 4-year deal too.
Well, that's the way the league's going now. Is the short-term deal? They went to, for many years, that was a problem with for any client from Boras. He wasn't going to sign short-term deals. I'll be honest, given the fact that they may not play baseball in 2027 at all, or if they do, it may be a truncated season. I'm surprised that a lot of these guys haven't signed pillow contracts where they go one place for a year and then they're out. And, so in 2027, 2028, they can figure out where they want to play for after the collective bargaining deal's done.
Right. That's gonna be the big thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I would, and then of course the Dodgers just keep adding, players to the already large group that they have out there. But I think the Mets, for some reason, was running around with Confederate money. Nobody cared. Nobody wanted it. Uh, and I honestly believe, to be honest, that for all of the amount of money and talk that the Mets have had about contending, I don't think anybody believes it.
That's true. I mean, after the way they fell apart in the second half of last season.
Well, hell, Cincinnati makes the playoffs, and the Mets, with a $700 million man on their roster, goes and they don't make it. And I'll tell you,
Yeah.
I watched Juan Soto. We talked about this, on our show before. I like Juan Soto. He's a good kid. He is. He's a wonderful kid. He can hit. He's an average outfielder, and he picked up a little more base stealing capabilities. But to think that he's a $700 million player just boggles my mind.
Right. I don't know if anybody's worth that kind of money these days. I mean, let's be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, the deal with Ohtani was a brilliantly orchestrated deal by Ohtani, okay? And it was deferred. Everything is deferred on his contract because he makes so much money from endorsements in Japan. He don't have to worry about it. And he was smart. He didn't go anywhere other but the Dodgers. Sat down with them and said, "Look, he negotiated this deal. He's the one that said, defer all this money. We'll keep playing. He wanted to be in competition. He was with the Angels where they never got to the playoffs.
Right.
And so he's like, all right, here's what my plan. My plan is pay me this over this period of time. I'll make the money. We'll still have money to spend. And the Dodgers are going to be $400 million over the there isn't a cap, but in
the luxury tax.
In the luxury tax, and they don't care.
Yeah, because you look, I think under the deal that Tucker just signed, I think it's something like he's going to cost them $110 or $111 million a year or something, because on top of his salary, they've got to pay the tax on it.
The luxury tax.
Yeah, so I mean the number is
it's ludicrous, but the Dodgers make money. The Dodgers are a money making machine.
Yeah, there you go. And because the Dodgers were already on track to exceed the highest luxury tax threshold in 2026. Tucker will cost them $119.9 million annually.
Man, that's
now. Granted, he's a good ball player, but I wouldn't have paid him the value of $119.9 million to play at Wrigley Field.
So the Red Sox didn't get Bregman. And I think their fans are going to get really pissed because they brought him in and they moved Devers off of third base.
And they traded him.
They traded him because, he's like, I don't want to play first base. And so now they don't have a third baseman. So, and they lost a bat. Now they did get Wander Suarez, to pitch. Okay. But everybody in that division got better.
Well, the Yankees really haven't done anything.
Well, they haven't done anything, but they're still better than the Red Sox.
Well, that's a fair point.
The Orioles signed some players.
True.
Toronto keeps signing players. And Tampa Bay may do what they did, but they always do, which is trade themselves into a spot where they can be competitive. So
I saw Tampa Bay was part of a 3-way trade today, actually.
Oh, really? What happened today?
They traded. Let's see. They're going to get Gavin Lux from the Reds. Josh Lowe's going to the Angels, and Brock Burke went from the Angels to the Reds.
Gavin Lux is a good addition.
I'm surprised that they sold on Lowe, though. I thought that he was.
They like Lowe, but he's going to bring you a better return. Sometimes you have to get rid of those guys, and they got new ownership. We'll figure out how that works out with that situation. But
so, what do you think about now? Because you mentioned it briefly when we were talking about the AFC North. What's your take on John Harbaugh going to the Giants and taking Todd Monken with him?
I think that I don't think that they're going to win the division next season. But I do think that John will bring stability to the team. Um, and I think that Jackson Dart's going to get a whole lot better because of Todd Monken. Todd was really good in what he did with Lamar Jackson. Um, he was very good at making Lamar uh, a more rounded quarterback, and to look first. And he got his passing mechanics better, and so I think that you know Munkin with Jackson Dart, I think is a good fit, and I think that what John does probably better than a lot of coaches is he surrounds himself with good assistant coaches and position coaches and all that. And so I think that's going to be his definite um, impact on the Giants. I think that, as I said, I don't know that they will win next season. They'll be better.
It can't be worse, right?
No, they can't be worse. But I think they'll be better, and I think that a couple of years down the road, they'll be back as a playoff contender. Uh, I don't know what Baltimore's going to do, and I don't know what Pittsburgh's going to do. If you are to consider what Pittsburgh has done in the since they've had three coaches since Nixon's first year in office. Give you an idea of how that went. So Chuck they went from Chuck Noll to Cowher to Tomlin. All three of those guys were defensive coordinators before they came to town, and I don't know that they're going to go that route. Although I've heard a lot of talk about Shula, the young Shula.
I've heard he might end up in Miami.
Yeah, well, that would make sense because everybody else in his family's there. But I don't know. The Miami job's a job I don't know. Talk about. I'm not sure I would take Stephen Ross. That is a mess down there.
It is.
Um,
It is.
so I'm not. If I had another option other than, I mean, think about the stability that both Baltimore and Pittsburgh bring to whomever their next coach is. You're not necessarily going to be expected to win tomorrow in Pittsburgh. You're absolutely going to expect. Steve Bisciotti is going to expect that I'm handing you the keys to a Ferrari, and if you wreck it, then we're in trouble. Because Baltimore's window of opportunity to win a Super Bowl, it's not closed, but it's definitely past the halfway mark. It's closing the window.
Well, the biggest issue that I have, if you're going to talk about Baltimore in a Super Bowl window, is twofold. One is Lamar Jackson is injury prone. We've seen it. We saw it this season. We saw it a couple seasons ago. And two, he always finds a way to make the big mistake in the playoffs
at the wrong time.
Right. And everybody talks about how, he should be a 3-time MVP and he should have won the MVP last year over Allen and he should do this and he should do that. But you look at his numbers in the playoffs, and when you've been in the league and you've had the sustained success that, Harbaugh has had in his stint there,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at Jackson and you look now and his playoff, his regular season record, sure, he's 76-31 as a regular season quarterback, but in the playoffs, he's 3-5.
Right.
And
Aaron Rodgers. Remember when Aaron was at his peak? Aaron had a terrible postseason record.
But I mean, who is it? You look at the quarterbacks that he's beaten. He beat a rookie, C.J. Stroud.
Right.
He beat. Let me see. Who else did they? Because I know I've talked about this before. He's beaten. Yeah, he beat C.J. Stroud. He beat Ryan Tannehill, and he beat. Let's see. Who was a quarterback for Pittsburgh last year? Because by that point,
that was Russell Wilson.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The corpse of Russell Wilson.
Right. Who was moved on to the Giants? Yes.
Right. But I mean, everybody talks about how this is if Buffalo doesn't make the Super Bowl this year, then nobody wants to hear about how Josh Allen's an elite quarterback again. because you don't.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair because Josh
Well,
Allen is in the
but
league.
watch any national media show, and that's what you hear.
Yeah,
But you look at, because they talk about it because Patrick Mahomes isn't in the playoffs, and Joe Burrow isn't in the playoffs, and Lamar Jackson isn't in the playoffs. But here's the thing: you know why none of those teams are in the playoffs? Because in the regular season, Josh Allen beat all three of them.
right.
And
there you go.
And whether you want to talk about football being quarterback driven or not, it's still a team game, and quarterbacks don't play opposing quarterbacks. You have to, just because you look and everybody talks about it, like I said, Allen's 0-4 against Mahomes in the playoffs. Allen's left the field with the lead multiple times in the fourth quarter of games, and the defense didn't hold it.
Right.
And that goes back to what Ron Jaworski always used to say. When a team wins, the quarterback gets all the credit. When a team loses, the quarterback gets all the grief.
Gets all the press, and when they lose, they get all the blame. So,
right.
So yeah, Jaws is right in that regard. I don't know. We'll have to see. Well, Cris, it's been great having you, buddy. It's fun to reconnect and have some fun and chat and enjoy some playoffs. So how about how can people get in touch with you if they want to see what you're doing? Because I know you write a bunch of good stuff, and by all means, just a shameless plug here for you.
Always at winnersandwhiners.com, and then you can find me on X. I still find it funny that we have to call it a letter,
right,
instead of Twitter, but at Betting Royalty.
Good, then that's where we will find you. All right, any final thoughts before we get out of here on a Friday?
Enjoy these games because, as everybody knows, this is the time of year when the number of games gets short, and then we have that long stretch where, unless you want to watch arena football reruns like I do on YouTube, there's not a lot of football to watch until summertime when the CFL comes back. So take advantage of these games because they're few.
They're precious.
Yeah, there's only a few left at this point for this season.
There you go. Well, Cris, thanks for joining us, and we'll be back on Monday. We hopefully will have Matt drop by and talk to us about the Sony Open in Hawaii, where he is this week. So he's filing stories, but he will definitely, hopefully, join us either by phone or somewhere when he finds his way home from Hawaii on Monday. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Enjoy it. Be safe. Stay warm. We'll see you on Monday. Well, there you go.